My name is Chris, as Keith said. I teach in the public school system. I deal with kids that are troubled, youth that use drugs, alcohol, violence, sex. That is their idea of life. So it's my job to try to flatten that out a little bit. I don't try to get massive victories with them. I do increments. I've had kids come in and say, "Hey, Mr. Robison, I just got a pound of weed I'm going to smoke this week." And I said, "Let me explain something to you economically. Cut that pound in half, do a half pound this weekend and a half pound next weekend, and you save yourself money. Because when you get so blasted, you can't enjoy the rest of it." He's like, "Okay, that makes sense." And that's what he would do. Well, the problem is I'm looking at him not using it at all within 3-4 months. But I don't try to get that in the beginning. I try to incrementally change it. So then a month later, I'm like, "Man, why don't you cut it down to a quarter?" He goes, "I don't have money, I need to." So he'd cut it down to a quarter. Now he doesn't use it at all now. So that's a victory a year later, and that's what I look at. I'm not his Holy Spirit. Now, to get to what I went through in life, I grew up as an Adventist. Very strong believer in God, absolute believer. Ran a church as a lay pastor for 4 years. Knew the Bible pretty much backwards and forwards. So I had a very clear understanding of God. In my second marriage, I married somebody that I did not get along with very well. And it was my fault. She was not Adventist. It created a huge firestorm of issues. And we had 2 kids together. And it was a very stressful marriage. And I became very angry at God because I felt that he had led me into that marriage, because the whole time I was praying, I felt he was giving me answers that took me right into that marriage, when in fact he was putting red flags up everywhere. I just ignored them all. And I got into the marriage and it was miserable. Arguments daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It just never changed. And I got to the point where I completely, absolutely rejected God. When I say rejected him, I'm talking all the way down to the don't contact me again at all. I don't want to hear from the Holy Spirit. I don't want you nudging me. Leave me alone. I did not believe God didn't exist. I knew he did. I just completely rejected him. In fact, my anger was so intense, the very arguments the devil used in heaven to say we need an alternative form of government is exactly what I was using against God at that time. Absolutely hated God. Wanted nothing to do with him. This went on for 3 years. This was not a moment of anger, and I said it, and then I regretted it. I conditioned myself to never pay attention to God again. Complete, absolute rejection. I dared him to do something about it, because I'm very proactive. If I love something a lot. If I hate something, I hate it a lot. And I hated God. Absolute hated him. He took care of business. He can get to you, and he knows how to get to you. On February 16th, year 2008, I was in the gym working out. At that time, I was a 250-pound powerlifter bodybuilder, a natural bodybuilder. I was physically very big. And I was at the gym with my stepson, and we were working out. I was warming up, and I felt this sudden pain in my chest, like I swallowed 2 bowling balls and couldn't belch them up. It's like indigestion times 100. And my right leg went totally dead. Couldn't feel it. You could have stabbed it. I could not have felt it. I told my stepson, I said, we need to leave here. And he goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "I think I hurt my back because my leg is totally dead." I mean, I was standing on it only because I forced my leg to lock out. And I literally grabbed my pants and made my leg work all the way out the gym. We're talking somebody that never had a physical problem before. Walked down 2 flights of stairs, crossed the gym floor, got into the car and drove home with him with my leg totally dead. My chest, on a scale of 1 to 10, was at least a 12 in the pain factor. I couldn't hardly talk or breathe. Got all the way home and laid on the bed, and my wife was in the bathroom getting ready, and I said, "I think we need to go to the hospital." She said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I can't feel my leg. My chest is killing me." And she was touching my leg. She goes, "You can't feel that." I said, "No." She says, "Well, let me finish getting ready, and I'll take you." So 15 minutes later, she's done getting ready, and she said, "You need help out to the van?" I said, "No, I can walk out on my own, because you know you're a man, you don't need help." I'm crawling through the house, I'm falling because my leg doesn't work, my chest is excruciatingly painful. I can't even bend over. Get out to the van and I fall down onto the floor of the van. I can't sit in the seat in an L position. What I didn't realize is that I was suffering what's called an aortic dissection, where your artery coming out of your heart splits wide open. The chance of survival with what I had was absolute 0. You don't live through it. My artery completely shredded. So all that tightness in my abdomen was all the blood in my body pooling in my abdomen and lungs. Well, when I got to the hospital, they had an orderly out there with a chair, and I fell into the chair, sweating profusely out of every pore in my body. And they rolled me in there and got me right into the emergency room. They ran a echocardiogram on me. My heart was beating fine. They went ahead and did a x-ray. Nothing was broken. And then they took me into the CAT scan. And as soon as they got me there and hooked me up, they hit code blue. They're like, stat, Dr. So-and-so, go, go, go. And I'm like, what's going on? And the nurse is running me back to the prep room. He says, you should be dead. I said, thanks. I said, so what's wrong? He said, there's no blood in your brain, arms, or legs. It's all in your abdomen and your lung area. He said, I don't understand how you're talking to me right now. I said, well, I feel fine except for my dead leg. And at that point, I did not call on God. I had rejected him completely. There was no prayers going up for me. There was no, I better do my deathbed confession. I had no desire to do that whatsoever. So they got me back to the room. My wife was standing there, and a nurse came up to her and said, you need to let him talk to his kids. And she said, why? And he said, he's not going to make it. And I was sitting right there. I'm like, wait a second, I'm still here. And I got on the phone with my kids, and I tried to be as calm as possible. I wasn't upset. I wasn't like shocked or mortified. It was just surreal that it was happening. And I talked to my kids. They were upset. They're like, Daddy, what's wrong? I'm like, what do you mean what's wrong? They're like, something's wrong. They knew something was wrong. And I said, well, if Daddy doesn't come home, I always love you. And he went into that final, because it started hitting me, this was serious. Dr. Schmelzer came in, the surgeon, and he's the absolute best surgeon in the tri-state for this kind of stuff. He is tops. Doctors go to him when they have problems. And he came up and he said, Chris, he goes, I'm going to be your surgeon. I said, all right. I said, what's the scoop? I said, give it to me in lay terms. He said, you've had a catastrophic failure of your arterial system. Every artery from your carotids to your hips is blown. And I said, all right. I said, then why am I still talking to you? He goes, I can't medically explain that. And I said, well, what are you going to do? He says, well, I'm going to operate on you. I said, what's my chances? He said, 0. And I said, all right, if it's 0, then why are you operating on me? He says, because you're talking to me. Had he not been talking to me, he would have just called time and I would have expired. And he's dealt with hundreds of cases like this. I mean, he is the expert of the experts. And I said, if you don't mind, I would like to talk with God first. He says, well, you really need to hurry. I said, all right. And I said, God, look, if it's my time, then do your thing. I don't have some fake confession for you. I have nothing for you. I said, if you would show mercy, then it's to your discretion, but I would like it if you made the doctors wrong. That's all I had to say. I have all these sins I want to dump on you. I didn't have any of that. I had really had it with God, completely marked him off. They put a mask over my face, and I still remember my dad and Pastor Long, he's from the Vineyard Church. He was there. They were praying for me. And they said, when you count backwards from 5, you'll be out by 3. And I still remember counting 5, 4, and I was gone. The next time I became aware of things was in a recovery room. I didn't know I was in a recovery room. I just remember opening my eyes and seeing nothing but pitch black. Which, how do you know the difference between your eyes being closed in pitch black and open in pitch black? It's the same. I just knew I had my eyes open. And I was looking around the room, I couldn't see anything. And I'm thinking, okay, where am I at? And my mind's becoming aware because they put you in a medical coma when you go through that much traumatic surgery. I didn't know that, but they numb your mind, they numb your body so you can't move around. So I was completely paralyzed. I can't touch myself and find out what got operated on. I have no idea. So I was laying there and I start seeing the shape of the window, curtains, the door, the machinery, all the pumps, and I start hearing the beepings and stuff. I'm like, I made it. I made it through the surgery. And the doctor said there's no chance. I mean, I had no chance. You're dead. I was walking dead at that point, or laying dead. And I started talking to God. I said, why did you spare me? I hated you. I rejected you. You say, if you reject the Holy Spirit, that's it. Why did you spare me? And this was a very intense conversation I had. This was not I just asked the question and didn't care after that. I had a change of heart. It's like, okay, he spared me for a reason. There has to be. I completely rejected him. How could he love me that much? As I was talking to him, he took me in vision to the surgical suite where I was at. And I saw myself laying on the bed. And in a vision, everything is as clear as what you guys see in this room right now. But you can't interact in the vision. You're just observing. And I saw myself laying on the table, and I had a tube going into my chest and two coming out of my abdomen. And Dr. Smeltzer was taking his right hand and hooking his mask onto his right ear. And he had a very concerned look on his face. And at the head of my bed stood two beings probably in excess of 15 feet tall. And they were dark. I couldn't see like shape of their face or anything. And I wanted to walk around and look, but I couldn't. So I could see them, and they were standing with their heads bowed. And I got a very bad feeling when I saw them. They were there to make sure the surgery was unsuccessful, whatever was being done. They were waiting for my death. And from the right side of my vision came another being in excess of 20 feet tall. I could see through the hospital walls, the floors, like they were transparent. And I could see movement in the hospital, but it wasn't human. It was angels and things moving back and forth. And this being had to be in excess of 20 feet tall because its head went up through the first floor, the second floor, into the third floor, and I could see all the way up there, but not its face. And it came to the edge of the suite, and it said in a very melodic voice, "He stays." And as soon as he said that, those two beings disappeared, and my vision ended. And when I came out of the vision, I was physically crying, but in the vision, I wasn't at all. I was just observing. And I was crying, and the nurse came in because my monitor kept going up, the beeping did. She said, "Chris, you need to calm down. You're going to undo all the repairs the surgeon had made." So at that point, I knew they had to have done open heart, even though I couldn't move my arms. Well, for 2 days, I was in and out because they resedated me again. Because when you're looking at the nurse, and she's looking at you, she knows that I'm not sedated. So she resedated me again. A couple days later, I'm sitting up on the edge of the bed, and my wife was sitting there. I said, "Man, I had this vision." And I told her what it was, and she was like, "You don't know what happened, do you?" I said, "No." She said, "Dr. Smeltzer took you in and operated on you for 9.5 hours. She said, you died during surgery because when they opened me up, blood just flowed out. It was all right there. It just flowed out onto the floor. And when my heart lost the volume, it stopped. And they tried to get it going again by putting me on the heart bypass machine. They couldn't get it going. And they were going to call time on me. And they decided to hit it one more time with the paddles, and my heart started again. So they continued to work on me for 9.5 hours. They took my aorta out, cut it out completely. There was a Dacron tube there with a St. Jude valve. And they said, I can't fix it because I was bleeding 30, 40 different places in my body. All the arteries were just oozing blood out. They were pumping it in me, it was just oozing right back out. When he brought me out 9.5 hours later, there were about 200 people at the hospital. Students, teachers, principal, pastor, church members, family. People were crying, they were praying, they were pleading, they were sending text messages to Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, Germany, requesting prayer. Literally tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people were praying. They don't know who they're praying for. You know, you just get that little text message, pray for so-and-so, and you do it. But it was an overwhelming uplift to God. And I said, "So what happened?" She said, "Well, he said I can't fix him. He's not going to make it till morning. He's been without blood flow to his brain for 9.5 hours. Actually longer than that, and his legs and arms have no blood flow. They're going to be dead. I'll be basically third base at a baseball game because there was no body parts of me left except this area right here. The rest of it was dead." And he said, "I've done all I can." And he was very frustrated because this is the best surgeon you can get. Very long, the pastor came up and said, "Can I pray with you?" And Dr. Smeltzer said, "I'm Orthodox Jew. I don't believe in prayer or miracles." He said, "That's fine. Can I still pray with you?" And Victor said, "Sure." And he did. He prayed with him. And Victor told me, he said, "I got this urge to go back in and work on you again." He goes, "I don't do that. If you're done, you're done." He goes, "I've seen hundreds of people die." And he said, "I don't go back in and work on a hopeless situation." And none of the stitches would hold. It was like sewing wet tissue paper together. And he said, "I couldn't fix you." And I said, "Well, then why did you go back in?" He said, "I just felt this tugging in my heart to do it." When he got me back into the surgical suite, that's where I saw him in vision. He was concerned because he had already failed the first time. And he looked very worried. And when those two beings disappeared, I believe that was where God could do his miracle. He opened me back up. He didn't know what to do. He had the entire surgical team there. And by the way, when I was in vision, I saw every one of their faces. I didn't know these people. And later on, I'll tell you what happened when one of the ladies was walking down the hallway. But anyway, he opened me back up again, and he was looking at me, and he was frustrated. He said, I don't know what to do. They were pumping blood in me, it was just oozing out onto the floor. I mean, it was gross. I mean, it was blood everywhere. And I'm out of it. I'm just a shell at that point. And people said they felt this power go through the room, like it literally physically moved them. And as soon as that happened, the doctor looked down and he watched my arteries closing up in front of his eyes. And he wasn't touching me. Nobody was. And he watched. He said, 1 second I was bleeding everything, the next second, nothing. Completely 100% stopped. And he said, I don't know what happened here. And one of the nurses said, I think the hand of God just moved over him. And people were moved by it, like crying and like they were like spiritually moved. And some of those people in there weren't spiritual, but they became spiritual. He sewed me up and brought me right back out. All the people were still there. This was a 16-hour stint all the way through Saturday night into Sunday. And people were still at the hospital. Students were, teachers, people were crying. And he come out and he said, I don't know what happened, but he stopped bleeding. And I didn't stop it. And instantly people were like, it's a miracle. He's like, well, I want to caution you, when he wakes up, there may not be anything there. He's been without blood flow in his brain for 16 hours. Necrosis sets in 2 to 3 minutes. So you do the math. It's critical at that point. He said, but he's alive right now. And blood was being pumped into me and the drainage bag was completely empty. So nothing was coming back out. They wheeled me up to the room and that's where I woke up in recovery. And I said, wow. She said, that's amazing. She was stunned because the vision I told her was before she told me what had happened. And then she understood, I understood. And even people that were in the immediate area during that surgery, hospital workers understood. This went throughout the whole hospital. This is, St. E is a big, huge hospital. I mean, janitors knew about it because it was unheard of. You don't survive your artery shredding coming out of your heart. You're dead. You have 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds to live. And that's not a 30 seconds where you can text message all your friends and say, I'm going by. You're unconscious at that point and you die. And for me, I was an hour and a half from the onset of the dissection to the actual surgery, an hour and a half. That doesn't happen. Dr. Smelser told me, he said, I'll relate an experience. He said, I had a man one time that came into the hospital. He was suffering from an aneurysm, a bulging of the artery. He said he was laying on the table. We had him hooked up, IVs run, everybody ready to cut him open and get busy. He went into a dissection because the aneurysm burst. He died right there with everybody ready to go. He died right there. They couldn't save him. They cut him open. They tried to do their best. He expired. He said, I was the worst that he had ever seen. So you don't come back from that. And he said, if you have half of that damage, you are bedridden for life or suicidal because you lose legs, arms, brain function. You're done. And I said, wow. Well, I was sitting in bed. Dr. Shaughnessy came in. He's like top kidney surgeon of all the tri-state. All the top doctors signed on to this case. This was like unheard of. This went over to UC. It went to other hospitals. To find out that someone survived this was unheard of. It's just, it's an automatic death sentence. And he came in and he was looking at me. I said, can I help you? And he says, I'm Dr. Shaughnessy. I said, good to meet you. I said, why are you here? He says, well, your kidneys have atrophied. They're completely dead and we're going to start dialysis tomorrow. I said, you won't need to do that, doc. He said, what do you mean? I said, God healed me, it's all good. He's like, what? I said, God healed me. I said, it's good. You come back tomorrow with a different prognosis. And he's like, he just looked at me like I was insane. And he turned around and he said, well, I'll be back tomorrow. And he walked away. This is a guy that's top in his business. He has a very big ego. And to have some little schmuck like me telling him it's okay, what does this guy know? Well, anyway, he come back the next day, he goes, I don't know what happened. He goes, but your kidneys are back. Because they had atrophied, like shriveled. They don't come back from that. He says, they're back, but your right kidney is going to need to be shunted because it's not perfusing enough. I said, doc, you won't need to do that either. He goes, oh, let me guess. God took care of it. He was like being condescending about it. I said, absolutely. I said, it's all good. He goes, you have any idea how lucky you are? I said, this isn't luck. I said, a miracle is a miracle. He decided to save me for whatever reason he did, so your prognosis will be different tomorrow. And he said, all right. He goes, I'll be back. And the next day he came in, and guess what he said? He said, your kidney's fine. It's not his perfusing perfectly fine. He goes, your creatinine levels are coming down. That's what the body puts out. and the creatinine levels are too high, you become toxic and it kills you. But my creatinine levels are coming down to a 2.0 and below that, like a 1.8. He said, when that happens, you're released from the hospital. He says, I can't even tell you what you've gone through. He goes, this doesn't happen. He goes, and you're walking out of here perfectly fine. I said, well, I'm not perfectly fine. My back's killing me, because when they open your ribs up like that, it kills you. And he's like, he just shook his head and he said, well, he goes, you've changed me. He goes, I've never believed in miracles before. I believe in this one now. I said, well, that's good, Doc. He goes, see me in 6 months. I said, I won't be there. He said, why not? I said, why am I wasting my time? I never did go back to him. And I'm sure if I went back to him now 5 years later, he would be amazed. But I left the hospital 6 days later and started teaching a month and a half later. Doctor put limitations on me, saying you can't lift in excess of 25 pounds. I've lifted in excess of 600 pounds because I'm back to working out again. I keep in shape. I do whatever I want, whenever I want, eat whatever I want, however I want. And I'm not doing that because I'm testing God. I've actually had some conversations with the Lord over that. On the back of my head, there was a bald spot about the size of a silver dollar, where they had that electrode that monitors brain activity, and it was sitting there for 5-6 days. And when I was seeing Dr. Schmelzer, I said, is this bald spot ever going to grow back? And Dr. Schmelzer said, no. He said, that's gone. I said, well, that's absolutely retarded where you put it. He's like, what? I said, why didn't you put it in the middle of the back of my head? Why does it got to be on the side? I said, well, I mean, I'm blunt about stuff. And I said, NASA called and said they see the reflection from space. I said, I said, Doc, come on. And he goes, well, I don't put it there. It's whoever else does it. I said, well, next time put it in the middle. I said, it looks better. And he started laughing. He goes, man, you're lucky to be alive. I said, I keep getting that. I said, but this is an issue. I'm going to talk to God about it. And he said, what? I said, I'm going to talk to God about it. And I said, I'm going to get it taken care of. I said, this is not right. And he said, okay. He goes, you think he'll answer you? I said, oh, he'll answer me. Either he'll put it back or he won't. And he's like, okay. So I get home and I'm in the bathroom and I'm talking to God. I said, look, you got a lot of issues going on. I said, car accidents, plane crashes, people dying, people living, all this stuff. I said, and I'm bringing up an itty bitty issue with you. I said, look, you saved my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But this bald spot looks stupid. I said, you know it does. I said, you've got all these scars on me from the surgery. I'll carry those for the rest of my life. Thank you, Lord, for saving me, but you got to take care of this bald spot. I said, it looks silly. I said, I'm going to have to shave my whole head and go Kojak. I said, so just understand I would like this fixed. I said, look, make it the same hair that was there before, the same length as it was before, and fill the entire spot in. Don't put armpit hair there because you have a cosmic sense of humor. And my wife came in. I actually talked to God like this. I know some of you may think, oh, that's not holy enough. Well, him and I have a relationship now. She came in, she goes, you actually talk to God like that? I said, I do. And she said, what do you think he'll do? I said, he'll answer it. Either it'll grow back or it'll stay bald. She goes, well, I'll keep checking every day. So for a week, nothing had happened. And that was testing me. About the end of a week, she said, my goodness, she goes, hair's growing out. I said, really? She goes, yeah. And I'm feeling back there, feeling that little tiny fuzz. A week later, my hair had grown completely out, caught up with the length of my hair, which I had not had cut for 3 months. The entire length, the exact same as it was before. Went back in the Dr. Schmelzer 2 weeks later. I said, hey, Doc, what do you think about my new hairdo? And he's like, what am I looking at? I said, you know that bald spot where you put that stupid electrode? He goes, I did not put that electrode there. I said, well, that was bald. I said, I got hair there now. And he turns my head and he goes, you sure do. What'd you use? Rogaine? I said, no, I used Godgain. He goes, what, you prayed to him? I said, I prayed to him. I laid out my case. I said, he answered it. He goes, well, you must be God's favorite flavor of the month right now. I said, apparently I am. I said, so I'm asking whenever I can. And he started laughing about it. He goes, well, you have a lot of limitations on you. I said, Doc, I'm not following your limitations. He says, why not? I said, based on your limitations, 25 pounds, I can't pick up my own kid. I can't even go to the bathroom and strain without dying. I said, if that's the case, I'd rather not live. To me, I want to be able to live life. If God healed me, then he healed me. Go out and live. Like he said to Adam and Eve, go out and multiply. That earth is yours. Do your thing. And he said, well, he goes, I'm just giving you the precautions because you're a very unique case. I said, yes, I am. I said, but I'm going to go out and do my thing. And after that, it was just a matter of getting back into the groove of life and doing things. Back into working out. 100% have been doing it for going on 5 years now. I saw Dr. Schmelzer about 1.5 years ago. My dad had a knee replacement at the hospital, and I was walking down the hallway with my 2 kids. And out of the swinging doors came a person I saw just out of the edge of my peripheral vision. He came out of the 2 doors, and he said, and I knew it was Dr. Schmelzer. And I looked around and I said, hey, Doc. He goes, Chris. And he came up and hugged me. I mean, he just bodily hugged me, and he's crying. I said, Dr. Schmelzer, it's good to see you. He goes, you look great. Obviously, you don't listen to a darn thing the doctors tell you. I said, absolutely not. He said, how are you feeling? I said, great. He goes, well, I've been looking at your CAT scans because I get them yearly. He said, Dr. Martin told me that you're lifting extremely heavy weight. I said, I've always lifted extremely heavy weight. He said, but it's not affecting you at all. He said, can't explain that when he goes, just keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, it's not hurting your health. I said, well, I live by faith, Doc. I said, that miracle that occurred. I said, by the way, you still believe in miracles or not? He goes, I believe in them now. So this is a doctor who was completely, profoundly changed by this. My point is this, is that God knows from A to Z, the complete rejection to the complete acceptance of him. He understands it. He gets it. Don't ever think a relative you have is hopeless. Don't do it. Don't become their Holy Spirit judger. Let them live their lives. Plant the seeds. Let the Holy Spirit give growth. Because that's what I do now. I plant seeds. I don't try to give the growth. I cannot regulate people's lives. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at my own. So I'm not good at doing somebody else's. Just understand that we have a very powerful God. And when he moves, he can move. Some people may say, well, why did he spare you and not others? I can't honestly answer that. I don't know. That was his choice. Maybe because I can witness and I don't mind witnessing about it and moving other people with it. Maybe that's why he did it. Maybe he just wanted my kids to still have a dad. But I look at so many other people who've lost parents that don't have their dads. Why? We won't know until judgment comes. We won't know until the Almighty sits down and says, this is why so-and-so is not here. This is why I took them when I did. And so I've been impacted by other people's hurt too. You know, I've been to hospitals and prayed with people that have been on their deathbed or have lost loved ones. And I've had questions put right to me. Why did he spare you and you didn't spare my husband or my wife? And I tell them, I don't know that. I don't have that answer. It's God that makes that decision. He is the Almighty. There is no other game out there. You can wish for an alternative like I did. There is no alternative. If he says it's time for you to go, you can't appeal to the Supreme Court of Heaven. There is no Supreme Court. He is that court. So if that's the case, simply follow God's will. Sometimes there's tough things out there he's going to lay at your plate, and you're like, why? Don't even ask why. Just say, how do I get around it? What do you want me to do now? I want to get busy, not depressed. I want to get busy and get on with it, because that's what life is all about. It's moving towards that goal of us getting to heaven and bringing people into an understanding of Jesus Christ. Well, I hope my testimony impacted you enough today to understand God does heal, and he does create absolute miracles. And he made sure that that miracle was clear-cut. There is no doubt about it. It wasn't, I got help 30 seconds after it started and I survived. An hour and a half after the dissection happens, you're dead within 30 seconds. That in itself was a miracle. I was still alive an hour and a half later. Every segment of that, he wanted to make a clear-cut miracle. Just like Christ waited for 3 days when Lazarus died. He wanted to make sure nobody, even the Pharisees, could say, oh, he was really not dead. He takes care of business when he does. So I hope this has strengthened your faith in your walk with Christ, and understand we're after a goal, and that means bringing more people to his word. Amen. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.